What is up, YouTube fam? Welcome back to another episode on Code with Annie. So continuing with our Java fundamental series, we're going to take a look at the exception handling in Java, which is a continuation of the last video. And in this video, I'm going to show you how try, catch, and throws work in combination together. Okay. So we already have this serialization example, so I'm going to build on top of this. So since we stated that this particular method, these are all checked exceptions, as I mentioned in the last video, because these are checked at compile time, and that's the reason we have this throws keyword, which states that these are the exceptions that can be thrown by this execution. Okay, now let's try to validate that. Okay, let's say that you are writing to this file emph.txt. When I try to read, let me give a different file name. Now I am expecting an exception to be thrown, which is going to be a file not found exception, because we are already checking for IO exception, and file not found belongs to IO exception. Okay, now let's run this. Oh, we immediately got it. See? So it ran and immediately said there is no file called employee emph1.txt. So there is no such file or directory. Okay. Now, this is the way JVM handles an exception that is thrown. Okay. Now let's try to handle it by ourselves. Okay. What I'm going to do is, let me introduce the try keyword. So try basically means that whatever logic that I'm trying to execute, right, I'll put it inside the try block, the logic that is capable of throwing the exception. Okay, right from this point till this point, the exception can happen anywhere. So I'm going to enclose the entire thing inside the try block. The moment I have a try block complete, I have to give the catch block, saying that, okay, if you encounter any exception while executing this try, just throw it and I will catch it. Okay, in the catch block, I'm going to say what are the exceptions we have: IO and class not found, right? So I'm going to say IO exception space IO exception or single pipeline. You can use a shift and backslash thing and you will get the single pipeline. So this is the OR modifier in Java. Okay, then you can say class not found exception space class not found exception. Okay, you throw either of these. Okay, or you can simply say IO exception or class not found exception space single object called exception. So this is called as handling multiple types of exception in a single catch block, separated by this OR symbol. Okay, and then I can say, I'll just put it handling the exception. Okay, and I'll say served exception dot get. So within the exception object, you will have multiple methods. You can get the entire stack trace of the exception. You can get the message alone. You can get the cause, which is the throwable object. So here what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the message. So you can say get exception dot get message. I'm going to print out that message. Okay, now let's try to run this. You see, last time when I ran it, there was a huge stack trace with the red lines in Java, right? That's the way JVM handles it. So once you start handling it, it says build successful, because the exception was thrown and it got handled here. See, handling the exception, which is what we wrote in the catch block, right? The catch block got the exception from IO exception. It caught it and it printed out whatever we have written here. So whatever logic you want to do upon catching an exception, you will write it inside the catch block. In this case, I'm just printing the exception and I'm going to just say, what is the exception? The exception is no such file or directory exists, which is employee emph1.txt. Okay. The same thing, let's say I try to convert this object into employee age, right? For example, let's try to see if I can accomplish this into employee object. I'm saying that this becomes an employee object. See, at compile time, it has no issues with it. Obviously, this method is not there in employee. So I'm just going to comment this line out. But what I'm saying, I'm trying to do is I'm going to read this object, which I've written to the file as a byte stream, into an employee object, although this is an employee age object. Okay. So this is expected to throw something called as class cast exception. So I'll just put that also here and I'll say class cast exception. At compile time, this is not known. Okay, this is not a checked exception. This is an unchecked exception. Why? because only when I'm reading this file, I'll know that, okay, this is not an employee age, but an employee object that I'm trying to cast it to. But this is an employee age object that I've received. And since it's a runtime exception, it is written as a class cast exception, which is basically a runtime exception. Okay. Now I'm handling that as well. And it should come inside this block. Now let's try to execute this and see. Build successful. Let's scroll up. And you can see here, handling the exception, no such file or directory. Obviously, because the EMP age1 I didn't remove it, let me remove this. Let's run it again, because I am okay with the file not found. Now the file is there. Let's scroll up. See, handling the exception. EMP age is incompatible with inheritance employee. Okay, there is an exception. It caught the class cast exception. You are trying to cast EMP age object, which is written as byte stream that you're reading from a file, into an employee object. So employee is not equal to EMP age, right? So that's the exception that it is saying here. Okay, you're trying to bring in something which is not there. Now, if I don't handle this here, let's see what JVM has to say about this. Okay. See, this is the JVM's way of handling it. Build failed. Now it says, let's look at the error. Class cast exception. EMP age is incompatible with employee. Right? You can see the exact lines here. So that is the reason why there's a difference between how JVM handles an exception versus how you can handle the exception. Okay. Benefit of us handling is JVM will not do this ungraceful shutdown where it says build failed, right? Instead of that, build will be successful, but we will be catching that exception and we will be propagating the exception as we see fit. Let's say you want to return the exception back to some other class, or you want to probably suppress the exception by logging it. So whatever action that you want to take will be handled in the catch block. Okay. I hope this video is very clear on the exception handling with try and catch and the throws keyword. I'll teach about throw and finally in the next video. So that's it for this one. Hope you liked it. Hit the like button if you like this video. Subscribe to Code with Ani if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye, folks.